Hey everybody, today I want to talk about the rise and fall of the Southeastern Smash Brothers scene. Now I want to preface this by saying that Smash Brothers is not going anywhere anytime soon. It is still one of the biggest gaming franchises in video game history. It is still arguably the biggest fighting game in the world right now. And yes, it is technically a fighting game. I know some people like to get in arguments about that, whether or not it's an actual fighting game. I think it is. If King of Fighters can take all these different people from all these different intellectual properties from SNK and put them together in this game where they fight one-on-one or in these sort of battle royale type of deals, then yeah, Smash Brothers it's a fighting game, sorry. But I really want to talk about how Smash Brothers came to prominence in the southeastern United States and became a huge thing, and then just kind of out of nowhere, almost as soon as it came to the forefront, was gone. Let's go back in time a little bit. The year is 2014. I have a good friend of mine who still owns a multimedia company. He does voiceover work and TV ads, radio ads, you name it, for all sorts of different companies and stuff. And one of his side projects was Olympus Esports, which is exactly what it sounds like, an esports company. And their big thing was Smash Brothers. And sometime in 2014, my friend asked me, hey, do you want to manage this bracket for me? There's about 35 or 40 bucks in it for you if you help me manage this thing. And I was like, sure, how many people do you expect? He was like, about 70. I was like, 70? 70 people showing up to this thing? Like, where the hell is this at? He was like, oh, it's at the video game shop up the street, you know, such and such games. And I was like, 70 people? Man, that's a lot for a video game tournament in Greenville, South Carolina. What's the video game? I expect to hear something like Halo, Call of Duty Black Ops, something along those lines. He says Super Smash Brothers, and I'm like, Super Smash Brothers? Who the hell is playing that competitively? And he sends me a whole bunch of links, and this is apparently a big fucking deal just right underneath my nose, especially out on the West Coast, and in Atlanta it's big, you know, and it's really starting to gain some real traction throughout the United States and worldwide. And of course the big one is Super Smash Brothers Melee. You have Project M on the Wii. Smash 4 hasn't come out yet. There are some smaller tournaments for Smash 64, but Smash Brothers Melee on the GameCube is the big money maker. I go there, and sure enough, there are 70 people at this damn thing. And these people are smashing like there's no tomorrow. I mean, there's friendly matches going on all the time. Like, as soon as one match in the bracket gets done, I have to immediately send another team over, or another pair over, to go onto that setup and start playing. Or else, like, these two random kids will get together and try to play friendlies on this open setup that they're like, oh cool, an open setup, let's go play friendlies. Like, no, we're part of bracket, fuck off, just leave, please. And so I'm constantly having to fight them. And these kids dude, they love Smash. I couldn't fucking believe it. In 2015, 2016 go by, and I'm starting to make a name for myself as a guy who can run a bracket and get it done in a timely fashion. At my height, I was being paid $120 to run 70 or 100 man tournaments, and I was getting them done in about 7-8 hours. I was getting paid by 3 different people to come in and run tournaments, and these things were not happening seldomly. These were happening, real talk, like every other weekend. It seemed like every weekend there was some tournament going on somewhere that was getting like 40, 50, 60 people to show up. And every other week there was some big one that got 70, 80, 100 people to show up. And every once in a while you'd have the big one like Smash Carolina or Tiger Smash down at Clemson University that would draw 120, 150 people. And I would just be blown away by all these people playing Smash. And I remember being on the hunt for some of these guys who were employing me, saying, hey, you need to go down to Goodwill. They got this 20-inch tube TV for like $5. Or they got this GameCube and game controller down there. They got this copy of Smash. I was going to every flea market, every jockey lot, every Goodwill, every Miracle Hill thrift store I could find to find tube TVs, computer chairs, folding tables, GameCubes, copies of Smash Brothers Melee, old Wiis and stuff that I could use. Like, all of this stuff was necessary to put on a tournament, and I knew guys who were willing to pay thousands of dollars to buy buy this stuff, either off of me or would give me a little bit of a finder's fee, and they would go over there and buy it themselves. It honestly seemed like a gold rush. It really did. Like, people were coming out of the woodwork to buy tube TVs, to buy GameCubes, all this stuff. And it was like the sky was the limit. There was no ceiling. And in March of 2016, unbeknownst to me, I ran my last Melee tournament, or really last Smash tournament of any kind. It went well. It went on schedule. I didn't go over schedule, didn't go over budget, got paid $80 to do it. It came, it went, and I never got another call again from anybody to run any other tournament. And all of a sudden, my buddy who had first got me in contact with all these people, all the game stores, all the guys I knew who were running esports companies, they just stopped calling. And I asked him, you guys still doing Smash? Are you guys still doing anything like Guilty Gear or Street Fighter? Those were like the sub tournaments that would run on the side. And they would just say, no, we just stopped. And since March of 2016, I have never run another video game tournament in my life. What the fuck happened? Ultimately, I think it was a number of things. Olympus Esports hosted its first big tournament in 2015 into 2016 at Clemson University, and we expected 150 people to show up. 250 showed up on game day. We were totally unprepared. We had not nearly enough setups. That thing went well past midnight, and by 12:30 Clemson University is banging on the door telling us to get the fuck out of this room that we had rented. I got paid $100 to set that thing up and run it day of show. Dude, I must have worked 14 hours that day. Not counting the drive time to and from there. I was either on the clock or on my way to going to on the clock for 16 hours that day. That first Olympus Esports left a sour taste in everybody's mouths, because there were guys who were hosting games that were supposedly on bracket outside. Like, guys had run a cable at some point outside, had hooked up everything onto a folding table, and had tube TVs and GameCubes running Smash Melee setups outside. And then they came inside only to be told that, well, that wasn't actually on bracket because there was no official there. I remember at registration, the line was so long, I stayed at the registration table until 1 p.m. The doors opened at 10:30, and I'm sitting there for damn near 3 hours just trying to get registration done. And by the way, the tournament cannot start until registration is done. We can't make up a bracket until everybody's in the building. And that left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, because we had people coming from like 7 different states, most of them coming from the tri-state area, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and it was just a disaster. We did not expect that many people to show up. We expected 150, we got 250. It was a total mess. The other thing was, the guys who were winning these tournaments, you could count the number of them on one hand and still have a few fingers left over. One guy was ESAM. I swear, out of all the tournaments I ran, he probably won 9 out of 10 of them. He won the doubles, he won the Smash Melee, he won the Melee 64, he won the Project M, he won the Smash 4, you name it, he was winning it. And he was going into tournaments, cleaning everybody out, and he was leaving with 4 figures in his pocket, untaxed. And when you have one guy in this little scene dominating like that and not moving on to the national stage, it really fucks up everybody else, because nobody wants to play anymore, because nobody wants to lose to ESAM. People were getting cleaned out, and hopefully you could get a podium or a top 5 or a top 10, make a name for yourself and work your way up. There was one guy I knew who sold everything he had, started up an esports company, didn't know anything about business, didn't know anything about economics or whatever. You know, I've only taken a few classes over at the local technical college on business and business law and stuff. Even I know, if you're going to make a company, set up an LLC, limited liability corporation. Just at least do that. That way, if something goes wrong and somebody tries to sue your company, they don't sue you personally. They sue the company, which is an LLC, but he didn't do that. He never set up an LLC. And he bought all these setups. He bought all these game cubes and all these folding chairs, and he rented out all these spaces, and he's held these video game tournaments that were shelling out thousands of dollars to the winner. And eventually he went bankrupt. And when he went bankrupt and they came to collect, they didn't take the LLC stuff. They took his shit. He lost his house. He lost his car, everything to the collectors. And the Southeast Smash scene just kind of piddled out as suddenly as it came in. And every game store that I knew, I would call them up. I would say, hey, you guys doing any tournaments? You need me to work it for you? They would be like, no, not anymore. That's not where the money is anymore. We make more money on tabletop games, or we make more money on this, or we're going back to selling new or older games or whatever. And I just never got any callbacks after that. And this was a pretty steady source of secondary income for me. Now, thankfully, at the same time, I had gotten a new position at my job and I started making more money, so I really wasn't reliant on this anymore. And it really didn't hurt me from a monetary perspective, but man, it was just something else to see this scene come in so hard and so fast, and then boom, just like that, it was gone. Perhaps the scene just expanded too quickly and made too many enemies when it got as big as it did, and people thought that they weren't being taken care of anymore. Maybe people tried to overestimate how big it would get, and they overextended, and they lost a lot of stuff, and then they receded back. Or maybe those people that got big just went on the national stage and they just didn't go back to the Southeastern scene. Whatever the case was, the Southeastern Smash Brothers scene, especially in the tri-state area where I'm from, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, it is a shadow of what it once was. It is nothing, comparatively speaking. It seemed like every week there was some tournament going on. It seemed like every other week there was some big one going on that was going to get triple-digit people to show up. And now it's just gone. But Smash Brothers on a national level is still big. It is still one of the biggest fighting games out there. And hell, at E3 we saw that. Smash Brothers 5 or Smash Brothers for the Switch got announced and people went fucking bonkers. Twitter was lighting up. Facebook was lighting up. YouTube was going crazy. Twitch was going crazy. This is still a big scene. It's just at the grassroots level, it's not there anymore. And as somebody who was on the ground floor when all of this was happening, that was one of the craziest experiences of my life. I would have never have thought when I was 12 years old and I was playing Smash Brothers Melee on the GameCube when it first came out as a kid that I would ever make money at this. Ever. Especially not running tournaments. Even when I was 12, 13 years old, like, yeah, if I get like super good at a game, I might get invited to tournaments and I might beat enough people to make some prize money, but to run a tournament, to make money at that, surely it'll never get that big. But it did. It did get that big for a while. I probably made thousands of dollars, maybe even close to $10,000 just running tournaments, not participating in them, just helping out, setting everything up, running the bracket, organizing with people, which by the way was a great experience. I learned so much about event management and event setup. It was like I was making a playbook every time I set up a tournament, and every time I put something new into the playbook. And when you talk about event setup and event management, I mean, that's some really good skills to have. It's a really valuable playbook to have in your back pocket. Oh, and there's another thing about setting up some of these tournaments. Like, sometimes you would have kids who were like really high tier Smash players, or maybe they were just really into it, and they would try to help you set up on a volunteer basis, and they had like no sense of urgency. They don't know what it's like to manage something. And at the part-time job I had at the time, it was super high stress, super high pressure, like get it done fast, get it done now. And there were like some kids who were running some of these tournaments on a really small scale, getting 20, 30 people to show up during this time, who would have these tournaments go on for 12, 14 hours with 30 people because they just didn't know how to manage it. And I'm like, no, dude, you got to tell some of these people, fuck off of this friendly match. I'm running a tournament here. How much are you getting paid right now? Because I guarantee you I'm getting paid more than you are, so fuck off. I got a tournament to run. Some of these kids had no sense of urgency and they didn't know how to run small scale tournaments, and then they flopped. I'm sure that played a pretty good part in the rise and fall, specifically the fall of this whole scene. It was, you had a lot of people try to get into it who didn't know how to manage them, and they would get into it, they would get like 50, 60, 70 people to show up, and they didn't know how to manage it. They didn't know how to tell these people, hey, you gotta go, you gotta get off my setup, I gotta get the next group of people in here. They were way too agreeable, and to run something like that on that kind of level, you gotta be kind of disagreeable. You gotta be a little bit of an asshole. You gotta run up in there and tell people, hey, fuck you, my time's more important than your time. I'm running this show, and it runs on my clock. And I did have some people come up to me when I was running these things and tell me, hey man, you shouldn't do that. Like, hey man, that was kind of a dick move. I was like, dude, I got a job to do here. You know, I work at Greenville Pickens Speedway now as a track photographer, and I work closely with the track promoter. And it's really funny when you have race car drivers talk to the track promoter like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And I know exactly what that track promoter is going to say. He's going to say, no, we can't do that. I got a show to put on here. I got races to run. We can't do that. I got a schedule to keep. And that's the thing between players and promoters, is the promoter has one job to do, the players have another job to do, and sometimes they are completely diametrically opposed. And it is finding the medium between those two, that sweet spot between those two competing interests, and making the best of that really makes a burgeoning competitive scene what it is. And I think there were a lot of people who didn't know how to make heads or tails out of that, and they just flopped. They lost a lot of money and then they got out of it. And that is basically how Super Smash Brothers came and went in the Southeast. Now, obviously, you can still find Smash Brothers tournaments going on in the Southeast, but they're not as big as they once were. They're not going on every single week with $100 pot bonuses getting thrown in by every random sponsor, every random video game shop in the Tri-County area anymore. That used to be the case, and it's not anymore. It came out of nowhere, it ended suddenly, and it was honestly one of the craziest times of my life running all of that, and I'm glad it happened. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how to promote things, how the competitive scene of a video game hype train is a lot different than you might expect it to be, and it was really eye-opening. And honestly, I don't think anything like that's ever going to happen again. It was pretty damn crazy, and if it happens again in my lifetime, I'll be really, really surprised. So yeah, that does it. That was the rise and fall of the Southeastern Super Smash Brothers scene. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and until next time, take it easy.